When life pushes you to your limits, you expect the people you care about to stand by you, to hold your hand, to lift you when you feel like falling. But there are moments when the ones you hoped would help you are the very ones who take advantage of your vulnerability. Narcissists don't reveal their true colors when life is smooth. They reveal them when you're struggling, when your heart is tired, when your mind is overwhelmed. It's in those moments they twist your trust, drain your strength, and make you doubt your own worth. But you must understand this: their behavior is not a reflection of your value. It is a reflection of their emptiness. Your vulnerability is not a weakness. It is a sign of your humanity. And once you recognize how they exploit your moments of need, you reclaim your power, your clarity, and your voice. There are times in life when you feel exhausted, emotionally drained, or simply overwhelmed by everything happening around you. In those moments, you naturally reach out to the people you trust, expecting understanding, patience, and support. But with a narcissist, your moments of weakness become something entirely different. They see what you are going through, but instead of offering comfort, they see an opening. They see a chance to gain control, to push you further into dependence, and to make themselves feel powerful at your expense. When you are tired, they increase their demands. When you are confused, they twist your reality. When you feel alone, they remind you that you need them, even though they are the ones who created that isolation in the first place. Your vulnerability becomes the stage where they perform their manipulations. They study your fears, your insecurities, your hopes, and then use those very things to position themselves as indispensable. If you're hurting, they may act caring for a moment, but only long enough to make you trust them again. Once they have your trust, they pull the strings tighter. They may invalidate your emotions so you rely on their approval. They may offer help but attach conditions that drain your independence. They may criticize your decisions so you question your ability to stand on your own. In every scenario, the goal isn't your healing. The goal is their advantage, but here's what many people don't realize. Weakness is not a permanent state, and it is certainly not a flaw. It is a temporary moment of being human. The problem isn't your vulnerability. It's who you gave access to during that vulnerability. Once you start recognizing how someone responds when you're at your lowest, you discover their true character. You realize who feeds your strength and who feeds off your struggle. You begin to see the patterns that once felt confusing. And with that awareness comes power. Power to set boundaries, power to walk away, power to protect the parts of yourself you used to hand over too easily. Your weakness becomes their opportunity only when you allow them to stay in the center of your life. The moment you reclaim your emotional space, the moment you choose peace over chaos, the moment you understand that your vulnerability deserves respect and not exploitation, everything begins to shift. You rise not because you were never weak, but because you finally chose to surround yourself with people who lift you rather than take advantage of you. There are moments in life when the weight of your pain feels too heavy to carry, when your heart feels cracked open and you're searching for even a small sense of comfort. In these moments, a narcissist sees something entirely different. They don't see your hurt as something to soothe. They see it as something to use. Your pain becomes the space where they plant doubt, insecurity, and dependence. They lean into your confusion because it gives them influence. They feed on your fear because it gives them significance. They take advantage of your emotional wounds because those wounds make it easier for them to shape your reality. When you're hurting, you become more open, more honest, more raw. You share your deepest fears, your regrets, your disappointments, and instead of handling that truth with care, they store it like ammunition. They remember what breaks you, what scares you, what triggers you. Then, when they feel their control slipping, They use those very things to pull you back in. Your tears validate their power. Your silence confirms their dominance. Your confusion becomes the space where they rewrite the story in a way that benefits them. The more you hurt, the more significant they feel, because your pain gives them a sense of superiority they can't achieve on their own. But here's the revelation that changes everything. Your pain does not define you. It reflects your depth, your humanity, your capacity to feel. The only reason a narcissist is able to use your pain is because you trusted them with pieces of yourself they were never worthy of. Once you understand that, the power shifts back to you. The moment you stop giving them access to your emotional world, their influence starts to crumble. The moment you stop seeking validation from someone who thrives on keeping you small, you begin to rise. The moment you recognize that your pain can become your strength instead of their weapon, you step into a new version of yourself. Your pain becomes their power only when you hand it to them. But when you choose healing, self-awareness, and boundaries, that same pain becomes the fuel that transforms you. It becomes the turning point where you decide your worth is no longer negotiable, your voice is no longer silenced, and your heart is no longer a battlefield for someone else's ego. There are times in life when you reach a point where everything inside you feels stretched, strained, and shattered. You're trying to stay strong, trying to keep going, but something inside you breaks. It might be a quiet crack or an emotional collapse that you can no longer hide. And in that fragile moment, when you should be surrounded by gentleness and understanding, a narcissist feels something entirely different. They sense opportunity. Your breaking point becomes the doorway through which they step in to tighten their control. Because your exhaustion makes you easier to manipulate, easier to influence, easier to mold into what benefits them. When you break, your defenses fall, your boundaries blur, the strength you usually hold onto slips from your hands. Instead of offering support, they use this moment to claim more space in your life. They may speak softly, pretending to care, but every word is calculated to position themselves as the one you depend on. They may offer help, but it comes wrapped in expectations and hidden costs. They twist your vulnerability to make you believe you can't stand without them. They feed you doubt about your own resilience, so you grow more attached to their presence. Your breaking point becomes their leverage, because in that moment they get exactly what they crave: dominance, importance, control. But the truth is, the moment you break is not the end. It is a moment of clarity disguised as collapse. It is the point where you finally see who stands with you and who stands on you. It is where you recognize who lifts you and who benefits from your fall. It is where you understand that anyone who gains from your pain was never meant to walk with you in your healing. This realization becomes the turning point, because once you see this dynamic clearly, you cannot unsee it. You begin to gather your strength piece by piece. You start rebuilding your boundaries. You learn to guard the parts of yourself that were once too exposed. And with every step forward, their influence starts to fade. Your breaking moment doesn't weaken you, it awakens you. It teaches you to rise with a deeper understanding of who deserves access to your heart, your energy, and your life, guiding you toward a future where your strength is no longer sacrificed for someone else's gain. There are moments in life when you genuinely need support, when the weight of your responsibilities feels unbearable and the world around you seems too loud, too fast, too demanding. In those moments, you naturally reach out for comfort, reassurance, or guidance. But when the person you reach out to is a narcissist, your need becomes something entirely different in their hands. Instead of offering stability, they turn your need into a tool. They use it to measure how much control they have over you. They use it to decide how deeply they can influence your emotions, your decisions, even your sense of worth. Your need is supposed to be a bridge that brings people closer, but with a narcissist, it becomes a chain that they tighten. They might promise support, but only if it benefits them. They might offer help, but attach invisible strings that pull you exactly where they want you. When you express fear or confusion, they use those emotions to create dependency. When you express hope, they twist it into something they can take credit for. When you express trust, they use it to reinforce their power over your life. Every need you have becomes an opportunity for them to position themselves at the center of your world, not to support you, but to control you. What many people don't realize is that narcissists don't just weaponize your need by what they give. They weaponize it by what they withhold. They withhold affection until you beg for it. They withhold reassurance until you feel insecure. They withhold validation until you feel small. They create an emotional drought and then act like they're the only source of water. This cycle keeps you chasing their approval, believing that your needs make you dependent on them, when in reality, your needs only reveal their inability to love without conditions. But here's the truth that transforms everything. Your need is not a weakness. Your need is a sign that you are human, capable of connection, openness, and honesty. The problem is not that you needed support. The problem is who you turn to. Once you recognize how they turn your need into a weapon, you begin to take that weapon back. You start meeting your own needs with self-respect, self-care, and boundaries. You learn to seek support from people who uplift you rather than diminish you. And in that shift, you reclaim every part of yourself that was once held hostage by someone who only valued your need because it made you easier to control. There comes a time when you finally pause long enough to look back at everything you endured, and the truth begins to unfold in ways it never did before. You start to see how moments where you felt used, dismissed, or manipulated were not reflections of your weakness, but reflections of someone else's inability to love without taking. You begin to understand that the exploitation you faced wasn't just cruelty. It was a lesson shaping you into someone stronger, wiser, and far more aware. This realization is the beginning of your awakening. It's the moment you understand that what was meant to break you is actually what opens your eyes the widest. Awakening doesn't come in a flash of perfection. It comes through small, powerful recognitions. It comes when you understand that giving too much of yourself was an act of love, not foolishness. It comes when you see that your loyalty was something sacred, even though it was mishandled. It comes when you realize that your kindness was never the problem. It was simply offered to someone who didn't know how to receive it without exploiting it. And once that truth settles into your heart, something inside you shifts. You stop blaming yourself, you stop questioning your worth, you stop carrying shame that was never yours to begin with. This is where the awakening deepens. You start reclaiming parts of yourself that were dimmed. You begin rebuilding boundaries that had been eroded. You learn to listen to your intuition, the voice you once silenced to keep the peace. You start choosing yourself, not out of bitterness, but out of clarity. You recognize the difference between love and manipulation, between support and control, between presence and possession. And as your awareness grows, the old patterns lose their power over you. Their exploitation becomes the mirror that shows you what you truly deserve. It becomes the fire that forges your resilience. It becomes the guide that teaches you who belongs in your life and who never deserved a place in it to begin with. This transformation is not about revenge or proving anything. It's about rising with a new understanding of your strength, your value, and your ability to create a life where your heart is no longer misused, but honored. Your awakening is the moment you finally step into the version of yourself that was always waiting for you beneath all the pain and confusion, ready to lead you into a future defined by wisdom, self-respect, and emotional freedom in the end. What you've lived through becomes more than a story of hurt. It becomes a story of incredible transformation. You may have been taken advantage of, misunderstood, or manipulated during your most vulnerable moments, but those experiences shaped a strength in you that can't be shaken. You learn to recognize toxic patterns, to protect your heart, and to rise with a clarity you didn't have before. And now, you're no longer the person who bends just to be accepted. You're the person who chooses peace over chaos, truth over illusions, and self-worth over temporary comfort. Your journey isn't about the pain they caused. It's about the power you found within yourself. So walk forward with confidence, knowing that every lesson, every scar, and every awakening has prepared you to build a future where your light shines without apology and your heart is valued the way it always deserved to be.